Welcome to Conversations with Bob and Sherry.
Hi, everybody. This is our Christmas show. First of all, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I have my Christmas sweater on, ugly sweater.
I forgot mine.
Well, you should have. You should have wear your Christmas sweater. Did you steal that Steeler one?
Yes.
Oh,
The black and gold ugly Christmas sweater.
yeah, you should. You really should expand your Christmas sweater repertoire in your closet. Okay, so a couple of headlines. One, I'm just so aggravated over it, is this Title 42. The illegal immigration is flooding. We're flooding through the border. Chief Justice Roberts paused the lifting of the Title 42 and keep the migrant policy in place for now. I think it's within 24 hours. They want the Biden administration to kind of give a do something about it. There is no plan as of right now. Pretty much just letting these people coming through the border.
Right.
So I'm a legal immigrant, so this is a topic I'm so passionate about. This is one of the commentator talk about this. That this is the redistribute. This is part of the equity agenda the Democrat have, right? Taking money from the rich Americans and give it to the migrants. But if you look Sacramento, you look at the streets, even in Pittsburgh, there are people, they're homeless. They're living in tents. And Biden administration is asking for $3 billion. They said $3 billion will solve our border issue. $3 billion can solve our homeless issue and mental illness issue. Help the United States citizens. We can talk about that more, but I'm hoping they're not going to lift Title 42. Meanwhile, White House starts suggesting us to wear masks again. We have a health crisis on our hand, and they're letting these migrants come in without checking some of the basic health conditions of these migrants. So this is just so bad. On a lighter note, my favorite team, Argentina, has won the FIFA World Cup. So I started watching World Cup soccer in 1996 in Hong Kong. Absolutely fell in love with the team Argentina. Not so much the game itself, but I had my favorite players. But it was great to see them win. It's a little rough on the penalty kick to win the FIFA World Cup and to lose the FIFA World Cup on penalty kick. But hey.
I was in Hong Kong during the World Cup in 96. That's where I found out about. I didn't even know about the World Cup before then.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the first year I started watching soccer. My father was a soccer player. My sister played soccer. My grandfather actually at one point represented the Chinese team and played soccer. This is before the Communism Party took over. I had absolutely no interest in soccer until I turned teenager and look at all those beautiful soccer players. So Argentina was my favorite team. That's when Maradona, he was a midfield. And he was like a legend in Argentina. So that country has going to be celebrating for years to come. But that's on the lighter note. So, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big deal. I was traveling for business with some guys from England. And, of course, they were all into this. And I was, I didn't know anything about soccer. I had no interest. I never even heard of the World Cup. And, so they kind of teased me about it. But we were in Hong Kong and various cities in China. And, so every night after work, they had to go to the bars to watch the World Cup. I didn't bother.
You didn't go to see? You didn't join
No.
the excitement? Oh, my God.
No.
I think that's when my parents allowed us to stay up at night to watch a soccer game. It was that exciting. So, it brings back some good memories. But I think France did a fantastic job. Nobody expected France to tie the game, actually. That's
Right.
a tough. So I give them a lot of credit. They're celebrating. They're receiving heroic reception in France as well. So, hopefully soccer will become more of a popular game in the United States. But again, it's football to the rest of the world because you can't use your feet. Where American football, the only time you use your feet is when you kick it off. So I
have no idea why they named football, but
I don't know either. We really it's really like a rugby, you know. It's
Well,
not
yeah, it's a takeoff from rugby, I guess.
right, but I don't know why it's called football. But soccer is actually football.
All right. So, hey, on Title 42, just to be for so everyone, if they in case they don't know, Title 42 right now gives the border folks the ability to just refuse people entry into the country.
Right.
We still have what 6 or 7 thousand people every day coming across, so it's still a large number. But they're saying when that expires, that number is probably going to double. We're going to be up into the 14, 15,000 a day coming into the country. And I mean, those border towns are pretty overwhelmed as it is. And I mean, the issue is once they set foot in the United States, they fall under our laws, and there's a process they have to go through before we can deport them. And Title 42 was, what gave the government the ability. What most people probably think is common sense is if they're not citizen, they don't belong here, you just send them away. But that's not how it works. So they're going to lose that ability if they lose Title 42.
Yeah, Title 42 is actually because of health crisis, right? Because we have a health
Right.
crisis in this country, we need to turn people away. So
Yeah.
you can't declare there's a health crisis in United States right now and at the same time lifting Title 42. And just to remind everybody, there is a set of law in the books of United States how to immigrate here legally, where your health is checked, financial check, criminal background is checked. So
Yep.
legal immigrants go through all that, and you're not preventing criminals from coming into this country by just opening up a big floodgate. Yeah, if we start having 16,000 encounters in the border or double that, that would have an influx of 5 million illegal migrants a year. 5 million.
Yep.
I mean, what is this? That would completely change the demographic of this country.
I think for this year, we're already over 2.5 or around 2.5 million so far this year.
Allegheny
Huge.
County is 4 million in population. So we're importing half of Allegheny County.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
think about the stress on schools and you talk about border towns. Every town in the United States, they become a border town. So
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, New York City, our largest cities have traditionally been about 8 million. They might be up to 9 million or something now. But that means in 4 years, 3 to 4 years, the number of migrants could fill a New York City.
right. And where's the infrastructure to support these migrants? Where do you and one of the things I did not know, but a friend of mine, her daughters attends North Hills School District. Turnout in Allegheny County, North Hills School District accepts migrant children, and that's one of their I guess resources provided to North Hills School District. And she said when her kids was in school, this is before Trump came into office, they were children in those classes, they cannot speak English. So
Right.
the teacher has to really pay attention to those kids, kind of ignores the kids of, taxpayers' children that attend school because a lot of attention are given to the kids that can't speak English. So
I think all schools accept them. I don't know if I could say they have to, but I know Shaler does as well. They have an English as second language teacher on staff that kind of is at large, floats between all the schools working with the kids.
and again, these are people, they're not United States citizens, are not paying
Right.
our school taxes, but taking resources away from us, from our children, and our government's not allowing it. Our kids already are suffering when it comes to education. So it's, I mean, it is going to impact our daily lives. And then with the crime rate that's rising, with the homeless rate that's rising, even the city of Pittsburgh, I've been here for 30 years. I came here 30 years ago, and city of Pittsburgh was not that thriving. It was kind of a kind of like a, not that thriving a city. But I have never seen so many tents and homeless people, and drugs activities and the shootings. And this is, with the migrant coming, that's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if I don't watch a lot of mainstream news, but I wonder if they're even reporting on it. Over the holidays, we had a Republican event, and there was a woman there who was Republican, kind of a never Trumper, and she said to me that the number of border crossings, people coming into the country illegally, is about the same as it was, when Trump was. So it never really increased with Biden. And I was like, "Where did you hear this?" And she said, "Well, it's the data's out there. It's proven. It's proven." And so, I mean, I just Googled it, pulled up the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS website, and the statistics are right there. I mean, the highest under Trump was less than, I think, 500,000, and we're already up to over 2 million. We're like 5 times that right now.
I think in the beginning of the Trump administration, before he went in and built the wall, implementing immigration, his immigration strategy.
Right.
I think it was pretty high, but during the Obama years, but it's still not as high as it now.
No. Well, and I get there's an ideological issue, and I believe once people are here, it's not our jobs as citizens to police them and everything. I mean, we should welcome them, but I mean, the issue to me between Trump and the Democrats was we have one who's tough on the border and one who's basically open border, de facto open border. And the reason that I think we need tough border policy is because it de-incentivizes. It's a disincentive for more people to come here. When they find out that we're relaxing our border policies and we're just going to admit people, more and more people come. So, at the time Trump did the, put the kids in cages, what they called it, which was a bunch of, garbage. But at any rate, the policy was if anyone comes across with children, they can't be detained. We have to let them go into the country. The problem with that is now you've given people an incentive to bring children across, people who aren't their parents.
Right.
I mean, kids are being exploited. Kids are being rented and sold to, by these coyotes so that folks can come in. And, you sound like you have this compassionate policy, but it creates a lot of problems and it creates a lot of suffering. So what Trump said was, I'm abandoning that policy and we're just going to detain them like, families like everybody else. Well, it turned into a big mess because they didn't have facilities to keep the families together. They separated everyone. And then at the end, they said there was something like 600, children still not rejoined with their families. The news was reporting that as a big failure of Trump's. And then they, Homeland Security come out and said, well, the problem is the parents don't want them back. They had 600 kids here at the end of all that, kids in cages thing. And, the parents that were in the South American country said, keep them. We don't want them back. And I imagine it's because they wanted them to be released into the country.
Well, I think the human trafficking factor, especially when it comes to exploiting girls,
yep,
it's quite concerning and alarming. I mean, these families are sending their 10, 12-year-olds with Plan B pills.
Yes.
Knowing
and they carry condoms. I mean, the Border Patrol will tell you. And the young girls are carrying condoms, and they say when they're about to be raped, they ask their rapist, can you please put this on? They're
10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
If you are compassionate and if you have any parents, how can you stand for that? The policy is incentivizing human trafficking, incentivizing young girls being exploited. And what about the little kids that die? They just get thrown in the middle of thrown away. I mean, you can't, there's a body floating in the rivers. And, we can't, essentially, we're helping the cartels in their human trafficking business.
Absolutely. Billions of dollar business we're giving them.
We're giving them billions of dollars business, and they're selling these girls and young boys to the underground markets. It's just basically new age slavery. Right. This is going to be 10, 20 years from now. We're going to look back in this and say this is slavery.
And,
Sex, slave,
to
and
me, the
labor.
problem is nobody's reporting this honestly. I mean, the way we're talking about it, this is the real fact on the ground. If you were to talk to the border patrol and things, you have to enforce your laws, or people are just going to break them.
Right, right. And then
Now, it,
when
I,
I saw New York City build that beautiful tent for the migrants, nobody even goes. So all that money spent with the beds and the
yeah,
telephones and the couches. And you know what the problem is? The homeless people in New York City are not allowed to go in there. I mean,
yeah,
come on. It's sad. I was talking to a couple young kids outside my husband's restaurant the other day. I mean, these are young kids. They're not Trump people by any stretch of imagination. And they were talking about how the border is flooded. They're not giving the money to the homeless people. The homeless people in Pittsburgh, winter's coming. There's no shelter around. What they have to do is purposely commit a crime so they can go into Allegheny County Jail just to get through the winter. And this is something, if you visit the jail, the warden will tell you. This is what they do. The crime goes up in the winter because homeless people will purposely commit crime. They go into jail, they get free Medicare, they get free shelter.
wow, yeah,
Yeah,
that's sad.
it is
I mean,
very sad.
I think the biggest issue with the homeless crisis, by the way, is the drugs, which is the biggest drug now is fentanyl.
Yeah.
And I personally am convinced that that's a war against this country. I mean, that's China, other countries that want to see the U.S. Lose power so they can gain power are
Yep.
literally harming our citizens. They know we have freedom, and they know that these drugs are attractive. And if anything, in the U.S. we're reducing the penalties. We're softening our laws. Well, you go to China, they don't have soft laws on
No,
drugs. And why
no.
not? Because they know if they
Execution.
soften those laws, it's just going to run rampant.
Right, execution. That's pretty much what happened if you are a drug dealer.
So, I mean, and, there's some new news out on TikTok, too.
That's what I just
And
going to say. Go ahead.
yeah, that's another way. There was a study that a group did. And, what was the name of the group? Something about hate. Center for Countering Digital Hate. So they did they basically set up 8 profiles, and they made them look like people, young people who are concerned with their body image, things like that. They had a standard user and a vulnerable user, and they created a pair of them in the U.S., a pair based in the U.K., a pair based in Australia, and a pair based in Canada. And then they tracked what kind of information TikTok was directing to these people. And, they said they recommended videos discussing suicide in as fast as 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So they create a profile that, based on the profile, this person is depressed, mentally, whatever. And, they were giving them suicide videos in 2 minutes and 38 seconds, self-harm videos. They said a video on eating disorders popped up in 8 minutes. And meanwhile, suicide, self-harm, or eating disorder content showed up every 3 minutes and 26 seconds. So they're just boom, boom. This is just getting fed to these kids.
Wow. Well, that's why the TikTok in the Western world, people use TikTok, sees video of Tide Pod challengings, eating Tide Pods. And when you go to
Right.
China, it's about history. It's about, science. And so, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're
so
not going
the government of China would never allow this in front of their kids.
to know.
They're purposely making sure that their kids receive healthy content.
And it's only 45 minutes a day, by the way, in China. Under
Right, they're limited.
Yeah, under 15 years old, you only allow 45 minutes worth of TikTok, and it shuts itself out, and then it's all good contents. There's nobody
And
eating Tide Pods.
by the way, those profiles all were set for the age of 13.
Okay. Well, there you go. And then that directly relate to our suicide rate because, again, people, you know, the value of life. I mean, if you keep saying like in the mainstream media, if I'm not, here's the thing, I'm not saying I'm pro against abortion, but if we talk about abortion as if this is human rights, we can end somebody's life. How do you think it make a 12 and 13-year-old feel about life itself anyway? If we can end something so easily and with no consequences, actually it's a glorification, instead of something private, rare, right? Legal, private, and rare, and secretive. How do we expect a 10, 12-year-old, 13-year-old to respect their own life?
Right. I mean, it's frustrating because to me, these are the real problems that our country faces. And, I guess the Republicans speak to the TikTok issue, but neither of them really are taking the drug issue seriously. And, why? Because there's no way to use it to get votes. I mean, it's a very difficult problem to tackle, so they just avoid it. So it just keeps happening.
Well, the drug culture in this country is very interesting. I mean, I come from a country, we were getting pounded ever since we were like kids, right? I mean, I don't even remember. We were just pounded. The shame and the embarrassment of the Opium War, how the Western took advantage, and, how the Chinese population was addicted to opium, how we lost the country to 7 European countries. So they pounded at you from when you're very, very young to, as you get older. I mean, every year there's documentary on the Opium War and the embarrassment, the shame, and the sleeping dragon or the sleeping tiger, how we going to wake up. So when you get pounded your entire life about drugs, you're like, oh my God, drug is a very bad thing. Versus in this country, drugs is very casual. I mean, they view drugs as very, very casual. And so you can't say it's okay to do this drugs, but it's not okay to do that drugs. So, I mean, you give a very mixed messages to kids. When it comes to drugs, I think parents should be absolutist. You should not say it's okay to smoke pot, but don't do cocaine. It's okay to do cocaine, but don't do fentanyl. I mean, this is what the Chinese government is using our culture against us, right? Because a drug is such a casual thing. It views as you're cool if you do drugs. Versus in China, it's like your life is over if you do drugs. I mean, we pretty say our life is over. I still remember the video I watched. I think I was a teenager. And that image of someone going through drug withdrawal is still heavily in my head. I mean, that's something I watched when, 30 almost 35 years ago. And also had a television series. It's about this guy. He's a kung fu master. And he was addicted to opium. And what he had to go through to quit opium. And, what the withdrawal he has to go through. It's basically he got locked up in a room by himself. He get some food sent to him every day, but and the suffering, the painfulness, it was very real. And you watch this, you're like, wow, that's something I would never ever touch. So, but you don't have that in this country,
No, I mean, we have homeless people on our cities. It's open. They can be out in the open selling drugs. They could be shooting up whatever way they want to use drugs right out in the open. They take a dump on the street. I mean, that's never been like that in this country. And, the reason I didn't go to the bar in 1996 with those guys was because I was in my first year of sobriety. And these guys drank heavily. So, I avoided that whole situation. So based on my experience, I can tell you nobody gets off drugs, nobody gets off alcohol unless there are consequences. I mean, very few. So, what we've done is by making it easier for people to just, they can live on the streets, they can create a mess and a safety hazard for people, regular citizens, and we just let them do it. It's like they have free reign. I mean, I'm not advocating, everything being more tough criminal penalties, but there has to be consequences. They shouldn't be allowed to just take over city streets and camp out. I mean, they shouldn't be allowed to, expose themselves publicly or use drugs publicly. I mean, and we never should be giving people housing. I mean, even the homeless shelters in Pittsburgh, the Light of Life is a great organization. I mean, they limit people to, I think, 30 nights, and I don't know over what period of time, but they limit to how much they'll give people a room to stay unless they're in a program. So you can come there on a 1-degree winter night and they'll give you a room, but there's a certain point where they say we're not going to take you any longer unless you get into a program. And the programs are various, but they're all meant to help put people back on their feet, make them employable, help them get home and support themselves. So, I mean, that's what you have to have. I mean, there has to be consequences to the problem, and there has to be incentives and ways to help them want to get clean.
Well, another thing, the way I talked to this guy who employed with us for a short period of time, and he's a great kid. He was addicted to opium, heroin, and he said he went to the rehab center, and they're just giving them something else instead of to get them off. And he's like, he realized it's all a money game, and he decided to go cold turkey. And that, my understanding is, when you want to quit heroin, that is the best way to quit, because the withdrawal is so painful. Mm-hmm. And so people will never want to do that again. That's the only way to get out of your system. And I think that's pretty much what they do in China. If people happen to get caught with, they're addicted, these people get locked up in the room. It's a jail cell, basically. It's not a cushy rehab center. You can go get something to substitute, and they basically go cold turkey. Now, some people do die, but that's the consequences. And so, I mean, it is just, it's very frustrating, and that's why we don't have a good labor force, because a lot of young people can't pass drug tests. The construction industry. A lot of the truck drivers, they can't pass a drug test.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of employers have stopped doing drug tests, at least for marijuana. But, for a truck driver, that's a federal requirement. I mean, that's, to have your commercial license, you have to be tested.
Right. Right. So I think the entire culture has to somewhat change. But now, not only we're dealing with drug issues, we're dealing with the gender identity issues. I mean, we just keep throwing these kids into murky waters, and people don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could summarize all this between addiction. It's a mental health crisis. I mean, addiction is really a mental health issue, and we're just making it worse with some of the things that, we're teaching kids in school, or they want to teach kids in school. With the gender ideology and things.
Well, the interesting thing is, when I first came to the state, in China and Hong Kong, because the population is so vast, so every class has 40 to 45 kids. And every kids have a very different personality. Elementary school, the boys are a little bit more active. There's some people are a little shy, and some people may be a little slow when it comes to studying. We just look at it as if we are different. Some kids are smarter when it comes to books, some kids not. So to help everybody kind of balance, we have study groups. Smarter kids will pair up with kids that maybe is not earning such a good grades. And then the kids are more active, get sent to gym class a lot more. They probably get them to run track and field. Mm-hmm. But here, everybody gets a pill. Instead of saying, oh, they're just personality, boys are going to be more active. If they're active, tell them to run, run in 200 meters. Here it's like, oh, you're super active, you must be ADHD. Here's a pill for this, here's a pill for that. Yeah. There's a condition and a pill for everything. Versus in China, I don't know now, but when we're growing up, it just like my next door neighbor is a boy. He's very active, always had bad grades, never was able to pay attention in class. So what they did is, but he's a fast runner. So they're like, well, no, you're going to participate in all the competition, all the track and field. And so it built up his confidence, and I will help him with his homework. Mm-hmm. And, this is how it worked. Nobody Nobody got a pill for anything. And so everybody was able to just grow up, you know, as who they are as a children. And it's very frustrating to me here. It's like they need psychiatrists, psychologists, pills for this, pills for that. And then when you're taking all those pills as a young kid, and as you get into an adulthood, and you have to face reality, right? Then what
Hmm.
happens? And I think that creates a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this whole, trying to force behavior on kids and things. I mean, you teach them, but, especially boys, they're going to go through a lot of them are going to go through some wild stages, and, medicating them because of that is not the answer.
No, I have, as a matter of fact, on WeChat, I went back to be friends with a lot of the kids that I went to elementary school with in China. One of them, I remember, he was just terrible when it comes to grades. He came from a family, I don't think the mother was around, which was very rare in China at the time. But now he's become a very successful, he's become very knowledgeable. He has actually become a teacher and, having classes. I mean, this is just how different everybody turn out to be. And then, he's a sailor. He's an international sailor to do sailing competitions. So, yeah, well, we really got off the topic here, but it's something
Yeah.
we're passionate about. You want to
What
talk
about?
about Elon Musk, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things happened on Twitter. One was the release of Twitter Files number 7, and the other was Musk's uh, poll that he took to ask if he should step down as the person running Twitter. So I'd like to talk about the second one first, the Twitter Files. This one is in particular is probably one of the more shocking. They have communications within Twitter that show that a San Francisco-based FBI agent, this was, I believe, during the Hunter Biden laptop thing. They sent written questions to Yoel Roth, and they wanted to know all this detail about propaganda activity, official propaganda actors on Twitter. Well, first of all, they didn't really like the idea of putting this in writing. But second of all, Twitter said to them, well, we don't really have propaganda actors on Twitter. And apparently that upset the FBI. I mean, they kept pushing. They wanted proof that there were people spreading propaganda on Twitter. And it's just, they were trying to make something out of nothing. And their internal communications within Twitter, like, how do we handle this? What do we do? I mean, these guys are the FBI. So, it's, they say what's funny is at one point, the FBI agent cited the New York Times as, New York Times reported that there was propaganda activity. So they cited that as proof. Well, the source of the New York Times article is the intelligence community. So it's like Nancy's wrap-up smear, because the FBI and, the intelligence community says that there's propaganda. New York Times reports it. Then the, FBI is just saying, look, the New York Times reported it, so it's true. It's definitely happening. They point to that as independent evidence and, confirm, and it's not. So, I saw one this morning. I didn't get to the detail of it, but Michael Schellenberger posted it. There was money changing hands. I mean,
Yeah,
the FBI gave something like $3 million to Twitter.
yes, they were, and then I believe the agent's name is Elvis Chan.
Yeah. Elvis. Right. Yep.
Elvis M. Chan. So I will absolutely, and it just, it's really crazy because if you think about, some of the media is saying how the Biden administration is really controlled by the Chinese government, and you have the Chinese agent infiltrating our country, and of course the guy who was contacting Twitter in San Francisco, he's a Chinese. So
Right.
you can. I mean, do we do background checks on these, people?
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that should upset everyone. I mean, here you have, and this is one of the conspiracies that are talked about on the right is, the FBI, on January 6th and in other situations, causing these things, being sort of the ones behind, pushing people into doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theory kind of coming true, like this really recently released declassified document on Oswald and the relationship between Oswald and CIA and the JFK assassination. I mean, I don't want to comment too much on it. I see some stuff on Twitter accusing the CIA somehow related to the assassination of JFK. That has been talked about for years. And I think until more come out, I would not, I would refrain not to comment on it. But again, I mean, the past 3 years since 2020, there are so many conspiracy theory has coming to light, like the lab leak of the virus, not on the bat, right? The gain of function research, how we funded it. Those are considered conspiracy theory until
Those are real conspiracies. They're not theories.
yeah, they are like now they start coming out, and all these supposed to be like crazy people, and whatever they were saying, it's coming out, and then I just saw there's a study in from Indiana. They did a study on 249,000 people. And now they're saying people have COVID vaccine is twice as much than people, unvaccinated people, to get COVID. And that was something talked about. And it's like, okay, so how many of these theories or this crazy people, what they're talking about, going to come out to be true? And the more that's coming out, I think the more people going to have a real distrust of the government. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's not good for United States. If the people start not trusting the government, and it's going to be really damaging the whole structure of the country.
Right.
That was also something like when we immigrated to this country, my father always said, in United States, the government is way more trustworthy than the Chinese government. But, I mean, it's turned out to be, I thank God we still have somewhat of free press and is shining lights on these things and start exposing some of the things, and thanks to Elon Musk. And then I think the mainstream media have been reporting on the border crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have not seen any studies, data that shows that the vaccine makes a person more susceptible to COVID. I mean, I think that's a product of bad reporting and people not understanding the data. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's just a numbers game. The majority of the people are vaccinated, especially the high-risk people. They're in the 90, older people are in the 90-some% range. So if the vaccine were doing absolutely nothing, then more people vaccinated should be getting the virus. But really, the numbers don't add up. I mean, there's 67% or 68% of people are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, but the share of the people who are getting infected is only 57 or 58%. So it's about 9 or 10% lower. So, just that number alone seems to indicate that, people, and the fact that the population of people that are most susceptible are, highly vaccinated. I mean, so, the numbers point to, the vaccine, if that is all your data, is doing some good, but, it's not, it's not as, and that's why they're reporting it. They want to encourage people to get more boosters. So that they're trying to say is, hey, your vaccine is worn off because now we're seeing so many more people vaccinated get it. So go out and get yourself a booster.
Right.
But I don't think it's being reported very well either.
No, it's definitely, I mean, I think people are going to believe what they see. They're going to interpret the things. They're going to reinterpret things the way they want to see it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think transparency, personal choice would have eliminated all this.
Oh yeah, it should have been. It should have always been a choice. I mean,
yeah,
and especially now. I mean, I just, it blows my mind when I hear people like they were on The View, someone had, and this was some weeks ago, someone came, tested positive, had COVID. So they're like, oh, I hope everyone's vaccinated. We got to make sure everyone's vaccinated so we don't. Well, the vaccine doesn't stop it from being spread. No. It doesn't. So, there's no justification to force a person to be vaccinated because they're not affecting anyone else.
Well, you got to see how much donation the pharmaceutical companies paying The View.
Right.
To say that. Yeah. So.
So the other piece was, Musk put up a poll. He's been doing polls. What do you think? Should I reinstate Trump? Should I, and the press has just been hammering him even for these polls. So he put up a poll should I step down as the head of Twitter? And 57% said yes. So up to this point, he's abided by all of his polls. He then, in this tweet, he said, I will abide by the results of this poll. So basically, what does this mean? I mean, Elon Musk is, I don't know what his various titles are, but, he's CEO of Tesla. I think he's CEO and architectural head of architectural design. He's the head engineer and CEO of SpaceX, and now he's CEO of Twitter. So, I mean, he's not, he obviously has a lot of people working under him that are responsible and competent enough that they don't need daily attention from him. So, I think that's what's going on here is he's talking about getting out of the day-to-day, and, it probably is something he intended on doing anyway. But the other possibility is...
Yeah, go ahead. What's the other possibility? I want to hear.
Well, the other possibility is I thought he's tired of the vicious attacks by the media. I mean, there was a situation where he blocked people who were sharing, the site that would track his personal airplane, and it was because somebody was stalking his son.
Right.
And they're just, I follow what's going on Twitter, and then I see the news reports, and it's totally misrepresented. It's just awful. I mean, what the media will do to hurt somebody. And, the other thing is maybe it's just a, quality of life thing for him. He just, he wants to do what's good for Twitter. I think, he wants Twitter to sort of be the main place where people share about the World Cup, the World Global Town Hall. And right. I think he may think that all this controversy is distracting from that.
Well, what's interesting? So if you look at this poll, if all the people hate Elon Musk was going to leave Twitter, then this poll is not reflecting that. So clearly those people didn't leave.
No, none of them left.
No, actually, I think more conservatives probably not on Twitter, and then more liberals are still on Twitter. So if all those people have left, we wouldn't have 57% people say, Elon Musk should not be in charge of the CEO of Twitter. So that's a good news, right? We still have the liberal, and it will still be a public square as he intended to be. I think I'm not sure he's so worried about the personal attack, as he has done an amazing job of putting Twitter and putting his name in the news. Mm-hmm. Every day. Now, Elon Musk has replaced Donald Trump as the Twitter in chief.
Yeah, and he has like 117 million followers.
Absolutely. So he has done an amazing job. He spent $44 billion buying this company. He fired most of the people. He made the company more efficient. And every time he sends out a tweet, ever since he said he make headlines, it helps people to get on Twitter and to make impressions. He doesn't want to lose the liberals. He doesn't want to lose the conservatives. And you see more and more advertising now coming to Twitter. So, clearly, he's not going to pick someone that's completely not like him to run Twitter, whether that's going to happen or not. So, even if Elon Musk leaves as a CEO, I'm sure he still has something to say. He can come back at any time. I mean, Twitter is essentially a private company. They're not publicly traded, so it's his company.
They were before he bought them.
They were before. So he's gonna appoint a CEO, and he's gonna tell that CEO what to do. And if he doesn't like it, he can fire the CEO. So essentially he just hired a manager. He's still
Right.
the owner of the company. So all these people
Exactly.
voted for it. It just exposing the fact that the liberals are not leaving Twitter. The Twitter is
Hmm.
still the public square. So I think he has done an amazing job as far as marketing Twitter and
Right.
marketing himself. Um, and now he's got to go back to Tesla because that's a public traded company that's
Hmm.
inside in his wallet. And
Right.
then, that's where he's passionate. But other than that, if like I said, I was never on Twitter. Now I'm on there every day just to see what people are saying. There's some fun things, there's recipes, and it's kind of fun to have this public square where everybody can argue. I think
Right.
before he took over, it was getting boring because it was just people agreeing with each other,
Hmm.
and that's never fun when you just have people constantly agreeing with each other. So he actually made it fun. But I wonder if this is. I mean, this is to me, this is all a marketing plot that he's
I
doing.
agree. I mean, my favorite theory would be he was at this. He was planning on doing this anyway, as you say, getting a manager. He can't be Mister Day to Day in Twitter any more than he can be at SpaceX or Tesla. I mean, these are all really demanding jobs. So,
And
yeah,
that
I think he
Tesla,
just used
yeah, he just used the
he used this tweet to his advantage, whatever he's trying to accomplish.
yeah,
Send a message. I don't know.
and Tesla is a public traded company, so he does have the board of director to answer to. He has his
Right.
stock, shared the shareholders to answer to. He has to make sure Tesla is profitable, and
Hmm.
same as I think SpaceX is also a public traded company, and then he has
Yeah, I'm
another
not sure.
company called Neuralink, which I have not heard. I mean, I have to look into a little bit more. So, come to an end. I just want to say, so we started our journey for for mostly politics with Bob and Sherry. Our first interview was April 6th with Clarice Schillinger. We started the show. I think we met within a week. We got the show started.
Right.
It's been 8 months, and we have produced, I think, 68 videos. In that 8 months time, interviewed so many people and got involved with some of the local committees and talked to a lot of activists. And then from there, we went from an interview show. Now I have this separate arm of conversation with Bob and Sherry. So we are continue to improve and trying to get more content to the show. And I just want to do a big thank you for our subscribers and people coming on interview. Now, next year is a local election, which originally when we started the show, it's really kind of this year we laid the foundation, and we're really hoping to interview a lot of school board members that's running and local council members. So, thoughts?
Yeah, and for those local positions, I think having an interview could be a game changer for them. Because it's tough for them to get exposure, and they don't have a lot of money for signs, and I mean, so yeah, I think we could provide a real service to them there.
Yeah, and I think the show has really made an impact locally. We helped the RCAC chairman's that campaign, and I think Sam DeBarco said to you and me himself that coming on the show really helped him to win that position. And then I think we helped a lot of local, inspired politicians to do their very first interview with our
Hmm.
show, help growing local committees as well. A lot of I know the committee you are on has grown quite a bit, and just give
Yep.
people a platform that they never had before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate all of our subscribers, as you say, and
Yes.
viewers.
So going forward, we hope to have more people reach out to our show. We hope to, get help people to get their message out, and then
Yep.
also help your local voters should know who your representatives are. You know how can you get in touch with them? And we're hoping
Hmm.
to also invite a lot of people on on the Democrat side to come on the show. It's not that scary. I try very hard to invite people on the Democratic Party to come on the show. So
Okay. Yeah, I think on the unfortunately, with the Democrats especially, there's a guilt by association thing. If you're associating with people who don't toe the line ideologically, I mean, that they're kind of afraid to do that.
well, let's
It-
hope that's going to change in the coming years. Let's hope the
yeah.
country are going to be more united.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, some of the more moderates, I mean, Steve
yeah.
Irwin, I would thought was a great interview.
So
I
as
mean, I'd
I
love
was
to have
very
more.
impressed with Ray Sosa.
Oh, right, right. Ray
He was
Sosa was very good.
very good, very, very good. So, all right. Well, on that note, Merry Christmas, and if we don't do a show before New Year, Happy New Year and Happy Hanukkah. I think today's the third day of Hanukkah.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.